Learn English through story. Fallen for forbidden love. In the picturesque town of San Remo, nestled on the Italian Riviera, life seemed to glide along with the gentle waves of the Mediterranean. The sun shone brightly, casting golden rays across cobblestone streets lined with colorful buildings adorned with flowers. It was a town that thrived on romance and dreams, and it was here that Elena Rossi lived, a young woman of 25 whose heart was as vibrant as the surroundings. Elena worked at a local bookstore, Libreria di Sani, which was a haven for bibliophiles. The shop was cozy and charming, filled with the scent of old books and the whisper of turning pages. Elena loved her job every day. She had the opportunity to delve into stories that transported her to different worlds, but despite the magic of literature, her own life felt stagnant. She was trapped in a monotonous routine, juggling the demands of work and the expectations of her overbearing parents, who often reminded her of her single status and the importance of finding a suitable husband. "Don't you think it's time you settled down, Elena?" her mother would ask during family dinners, her tone dripping with concern. "You're not getting any younger." Elena would smile politely, suppressing the irritation that bubbled beneath the surface. Her parents had their own visions for her future, but she yearned for something more, a love that wasn't merely a societal expectation but a profound connection that ignited her soul. One warm evening, as the sun began to set over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Elena stepped out of the bookstore after closing up. She decided to take a stroll along the promenade, where couples walked hand in hand, their laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. It was there, amidst the chatter of tourists and the gentle rhythm of the ocean, that she first saw him. Marco Giordano was a newcomer to San Remo, a tall man with an air of mystery surrounding him. He was dark-haired, with deep brown eyes that held a glimmer of mischief. He sat on a bench, sketching the view before him with quick, deft strokes. Elena was drawn to him, a magnetic pull that made her heart race. She had never been one to approach strangers, but something about Marco's presence ignited a spark of courage within her. "Is it your first time in San Remo?" she asked, unable to resist the urge to break the silence. He looked up, a surprised smile spreading across his face. "It is. I'm here for inspiration. The beauty of this town is incredible." Elena felt an unexpected thrill at the way he looked at her, as if he could see into her very soul. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their lives, dreams, and the passions that fueled them. Marco was an artist, traveling the world to find the perfect muse for his paintings. Elena felt alive in his presence, her heart pounding as he spoke with fervor about art and creativity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a twilight glow around them, they exchanged numbers, and Elena felt a flutter of hope blossom in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt a connection to something she had been longing for. In the following weeks, their connection deepened. Marco became a frequent visitor to San Remo, often stopping by the bookstore. He would bring her coffee and surprise her with small gifts, a hand-painted bookmark or a sketch of the view from her favorite spot in the city. Their laughter echoed through the aisles, and with each meeting, Elena found herself falling for him hard. But as their bond grew stronger, so did the weight of reality pressing down on them. Marco was not just any artist, he was the son of a wealthy family from Milan, a lineage steeped in tradition and expectations. His parents had a vision for his future, one that did not include falling in love with a simple bookstore clerk. Elena knew that if they were discovered, the consequences could be devastating. One evening, as they sat on the beach, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Elena voiced her fears. "What if someone finds out about us, Marco? Your family a broken bar they wouldn't understand." He took her hand, his touch sending shivers down her spine. Let them find out. I don't care about their expectations. What we have is real, and I want to explore it fully. Elena's heart swelled at his words, but doubt crept in. She had seen the power of family expectations in her own life via how they could stifle dreams and crush the spirit. But Marco, your family is powerful. They won't just let you walk away from their plans. Marco's gaze was fierce. I'm not a child anymore. I'm willing to fight for what I want. And right now, I want you. With those words, the tension that had been hanging between them snapped. They leaned into each other, sharing a kiss that ignited a fire within Elena, one that consumed her with passion and desire. As they pulled away, breathless, the weight of the world faded into the background, leaving only the two of them. But as summer turned to fall, the reality of their situation began to cast a shadow over their love. Marco's visits became less frequent as he returned to Milan for family obligations. Each day without him felt like an eternity, and Elena spent her nights tossing and turning, haunted by the fear of losing him. One rainy afternoon, as she arranged new books in the store, she received an unexpected phone call from Marco. His voice was strained, filled with urgency. Elena, I need to see you. Can we meet? They arranged to meet at a secluded cafe tilde copyright on the outskirts of town. As Elena arrived, her heart raced with anticipation. But when she saw Marco, the worry etched on his face sent a chill down her spine. What's wrong? She asked, her heart pounding. I just had dinner with my family, he said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. They've arranged a marriage for me. A girl from a wealthy family in Milan. Elena's breath caught in her throat. What? Marco, you can't be serious. I tried to tell them I don't want it, but they're relentless. They want me to follow in my father's footsteps. They see it as a business deal, a way to secure connections. His voice trembled with anger and despair. Then we'll fight this together, she insisted, trying to hold back her own tears. You can tell them you don't love her. They don't care about love, Elena. It's about status and power. They won't let me walk away from this, he replied, his voice breaking. For the first time, Elena felt the full weight of their situation. Their love, so intoxicating and beautiful, was suffocated by the reality of tradition and family expectations. The thought of Marco being trapped in a loveless marriage tore at her heart. What do we do? She whispered, feeling helpless. Marco took her hands in his gaze intense. We have to be careful. I can't risk losing my family completely. But I don't want to lose you either. In that moment, a surge of determination filled Elena. Then let's figure this out. We'll find a way to be together. Love is worth fighting for. They spent the next few weeks devising a plan, meeting in secret, exploring ways to navigate Marco's family dynamics. Their love became a sanctuary, a refuge from the harsh realities of the world outside. Yet, with every passing day, the pressure mounted, the threat of discovery looming like a dark cloud. One fateful evening, as they strolled through the narrow streets of San Remo, Elena noticed a shadow following them. Her heart raced as they turned a corner, but the figure disappeared into the night. Did you see that? She asked, her voice trembling. Marco frowned, his protective instincts kicking in. Let's get you home. But the next day, their worst fears were realized. Elena was approached at work by a woman in a sharp suit, an investigator hired by Marco's family. We know about your relationship with Marco, she stated coldly. This is not a game. If you don't end things now, there will be consequences. Elena's heart sank as the weight of the threat pressed down on her. I love him, she declared, defiance flooding her voice. The investigator's expression hardened. Love? You're merely a distraction. You're standing in the way of his future, and that's unacceptable. As the woman left, Elena felt a wave of panic wash over her. What would happen if they were discovered? The fear of losing Marco consumed her thoughts, but she couldn't bear the thought of giving him up. Desperate for answers, she rushed to meet Marco that evening. "They know, Marco, they threatened me." "What are we going to do?" he cursed under his breath, the frustration boiling within him. "I should have seen this coming. They won't stop until they have what they want." Tears streamed down her face as she looked at him, feeling powerless. "What if they hurt you? What if they force you to marry her?" Marco took her hands, his gaze intense. "I won't let that happen. I refuse to live my life for them. But we need to be smart about this. I'll talk to my family and confront them. I'll make it clear that I won't go through with it." The resolve in his voice gave Elena a flicker of hope. "And if they don't listen, then we leave. Together, we'll find a way to make this work, no matter what," he promised. The next few days were a blur of uncertainty and tension. Marco faced his family, confronting them about the arranged marriage and declaring his love for Elena. He stood firm, unwavering in his conviction, but the fallout was catastrophic. His father's fury echoed through the walls of their home, and the family bonds that once felt unbreakable began to fray. "Do you think you can throw away everything we've built for a fleeting romance?" his father shouted, his voice laden with disappointment. "You'll ruin your future for a girl who means nothing to us." In the weeks that followed, Marco became a shadow of himself, tormented by the pressure of his family's expectations and the threat of losing everything. Elena could see the toil that took on him. The spark that once lit up his eyes was dimming. The walls of their love felt increasingly confining, and every stolen moment became tinged with despair. One evening, as they sat on the beach, Marco took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I don't know how much longer I can keep fighting. They're relentless, and they won't stop until they've gotten what they want." Elena's heart ached at the thought of losing him. "What if we just leave? We could start fresh somewhere far away from here." He looked at her, a mixture of hope and despair etched on his face. "You're talking about running away, Elena. What kind of life would that be?" "I want to be with you, but I can't keep running from my family." Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for his hand. "You deserve to be happy, Marco." "We both do. But we can't let them dictate our lives. We have to take a stand." He sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his family's expectations. "You're right, but it's complicated. I'm scared of what will happen if I choose you over them." "Then let's face that fear together. We can figure this out." "We don't have to do it alone," she urged, her voice trembling with emotion. In that moment, they made a pact, an unbreakable promise to fight for their love, no matter the cost. But even as they spoke those words, doubt lingered like an unwelcome shadow. Days turned into weeks, and the tension mounted. Marco's family continued to pressure him to conform, threatening to cut him off completely if he pursued his feelings for Elena. His heart was torn, but his resolve remained. They met under the cover of darkness, whispering dreams and plans, weaving their hopes into a tapestry of love that seemed both beautiful and fragile. One fateful night, as they strolled through the narrow alleys of San Remo, they were met by Marco's younger sister, Sofia. Her expression was one of concern as she approached them. "Marco, you have to come home. They're worried about you. They think you're losing your way." Marco stiffened, glancing at Elena with uncertainty. "I'm fine, Sofia. I'm just No, you're not fine," she interrupted, her voice urgent. "They'll disown you, Marco. You can't keep pushing them away. Please, just come home." Elena's heart sank as she watched the conflict play out in Marco's eyes. "You need to think about your future," Sofia added, her gaze pleading. "What about my future with Elena?" Marco snapped, frustration boiling over. "Why can't you understand that I love her? Sophia flinched at his words, but then her expression softened. I know you do, but love won't feed you or pay the bills. You have responsibilities, Marco. You need to make a choice. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving a silence that felt heavy with unspoken words. Elena felt a knot form in her stomach as she faced Marco. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, he admitted, anguish etched across his face. I can't just walk away from my family, but I can't keep pretending that I don't love you. The conflict within him mirrored the storm brewing outside, the wind howling as raindrops began to fall. Marco ran a hand through his hair, pacing the sidewalk in frustration. I need time to think. Elena's heart sank. Time? But we don't have time. You need to decide before it's too late. As he turned away from her, the distance between them felt like a chasm. I need to figure this out. I'll call you. With that, he walked away, leaving Elena standing alone in the rain, feeling the weight of uncertainty crash over her like the waves against the shore. The reality of their situation loomed larger than ever, a dark cloud overshadowing their love. Days turned into an agonizing silence. Marco's absence felt like a void, a constant reminder of the love they had fought so hard to protect. Each morning, Elena woke up with a heaviness in her chest, haunted by memories of laughter and shared dreams. The bookstore felt empty without his playful banter and unexpected visits. Finally, after a week of torment, she received a text from Marco. Can we meet? I need to talk. Her heart raced with anticipation and dread. She arrived at their usual spot, the beach, her breath caught in her throat as she spotted him. He looked weary, his eyes shadowed with worry. What's going on? She asked, feeling the tension in the air. I've spoken to my family, he said, his voice steady but strained. They're adamant about the marriage. I don't think I can fight them any longer. The weight of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. Marco, you can't just give up. We can find a way through this. I love you, Elena. I truly do, he said, his voice cracking. But I can't turn my back on my family completely. I won't survive without them. They're threatening to cut me off if I continue to pursue this. I can't let that happen. A wave of despair washed over her. So what does that mean for us? Are you saying we have to end this? Tears filled his eyes as he shook his head. I don't want to end it, but I can't be the reason my family falls apart. I need to think about the bigger picture. Elena felt her heart shatter into a million pieces as she listened to him speak. You deserve to be happy, Marco. But you have to choose what that means for you. You can't let fear dictate your life. I know, but it's not just my happiness at stake here, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. There are consequences to every choice. In that moment, Elena realized the harsh truth. Love was not enough to conquer the barriers that separated them. The forces that held them apart were far more powerful than their feelings. As tears streamed down her face, she fought the urge to reach for him, to beg him to choose her. Instead, she stepped back, forcing herself to create distance. Then what do we do? She whispered, feeling lost and broken. Maybe maybe we need to take a step back, Marco said, his voice pained. I can't lose my family, but I don't want to lose you either. Perhaps time apart will give us clarity. The thought of separation felt like a death sentence to Elena's heart, but deep down, she knew he was right. If that's what you think is best, she managed to say, her voice trembling. Please don't hate me, he said, desperation lacing his words. I could never hate you, she replied, feeling the finality of the moment settle in. I'll always love you. With heavy hearts, they parted ways that night, leaving behind a love that had once burned so brightly, now extinguished by the reality of their circumstances. Elena returned home, the silence echoing in her empty apartment. She felt as though a part of her had been ripped away, leaving a gaping hole in its place. Days turned into weeks, and the world continued to spin without them. Marco immersed himself in his family's expectations, attending events and dinners where he wore a mask of compliance. Each time he returned home, he felt the weight of his choice pressing down on him, a constant reminder of the love he had sacrificed. But as the days turned into months, the separation began to wear on both of them. Marco found himself wandering the streets of San Remo, memories of Elena flooding his mind. He missed her laughter, her warmth, the way she made the world feel alive. No matter how hard he tried to suppress it, the love they shared lingered like a ghost, haunting his every thought. Elena, too, felt the void of his absence. She poured herself into her work, trying to fill the emptiness with books and distractions. But nothing could replace the joy Marco brought to her life. As she watched couples stroll by, hand in hand, she couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. One rainy afternoon, as she organized the shelves at the bookstore, she came across a book that reminded her of him, a beautiful novel about love and sacrifice. Unable to resist, she opened it and began to read, becoming lost in the words that echoed her own heartache. As the rain poured outside, she felt a familiar presence behind her. Turning around, she gasped as she saw Marco standing in the doorway, drenched from the rain. "Elena," he breathed, his eyes filled with a mix of longing and regret. Without hesitation, she rushed into his arms, feeling the warmth of his body envelop her. "I've missed you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I've missed you too," he admitted, holding her tightly as if afraid to let go. "I can't keep living without you." "I tried, but the emptiness is unbearable." As they pulled away, the realization hung heavy in the air. "What about your family?" Elena asked, fear creeping back into her heart. "I don't care anymore. I've realized that love is worth fighting for," he declared, determination shining in his eyes. "I can't live my life for them. I need to be true to myself, and to you." Elena felt hope ignite within her. "So what do we do?" Marco took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "We face this together. I'll talk to my family again, and this time, I'll make them understand that I won't marry someone I don't love. I'll fight for us." As they stood there, the rain poured down around them, but in that moment, it felt as if the world faded away. They kissed, a kiss that spoke of longing, pain, and the promise of a future together. It was a kiss that reignited the flame of their love, warming their hearts amidst the storm. With newfound resolve, Marco and Elena began to make plans for their future. They spent long nights discussing their dreams, the life they wanted to build together, and the obstacles they would have to face. The love that had once felt forbidden now blossomed into something fierce and unstoppable. Days turned into weeks, and Marco finally gathered the courage to confront his family. He stood before them, his heart pounding, as he declared his intentions. "I will not marry someone I don't love. I can't live a life dictated by your expectations. I'm in love with Elena, and I refuse to let that go." The silence that followed was deafening, his family's expressions a mix of shock and anger. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for," his father shouted, his face red with fury. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing to live for myself," Marco replied, his voice steady. "If you can't accept my choice, then that's your decision, not mine." As the confrontation escalated, Marco felt the weight of his family's disappointment bearing down on him. But within him, a sense of liberation blossomed. He was finally taking control of his life, unshackling himself from the chains of expectation. Finally gathered the coup. After a tense standoff, Marco walked away from his family home, the finality of his choice settling in. The road ahead would not be easy, but he knew that he had chosen love over fear, and that was a victory in itself. Meanwhile, Elena continued to work at the bookstore, her heart racing with anticipation every time her phone buzzed. Each day felt like an eternity, but she remained hopeful, knowing that Marco was fighting for them. One evening, as she was closing up the store, she received a text from Marco: "Meet me at our spot. I have something to tell you." Her heart soared as she quickly made her way to the beach, the moon casting a silvery glow over the waves. When she arrived, Marco was already waiting, a nervous energy radiating from him. "What is it?" she asked, her excitement bubbling over. He took a deep breath, his gaze locking onto hers. "I talked to my family, and a broken bar. It didn't go well, but I'm not backing down. I love you, and I want to be with you." Elena's heart raced as she stepped closer, her hands trembling. "So what now? What did they say?" "They're furious. They want me to marry her, but I can't. I won't. I told them I'd rather be disowned than live a life without you," he said, his voice filled with conviction. Tears of joy filled Elena's eyes as she threw her arms around him. "You did it. You chose us." "I did," he replied, pulling her closer. "I'm ready to fight for our love, no matter the cost." In that moment, the weight of the world lifted off their shoulders. They kissed passionately, the taste of freedom and love igniting a flame within them that burned brighter than ever before. But as the excitement settled, the reality of their situation loomed over them. They knew they would have to face the consequences of Marco's choice, a choice that would challenge their love in ways they could never have anticipated. As they navigated the stormy waters of Marco's family's anger, they leaned on each other for support. They spent countless nights discussing their dreams and aspirations, envisioning a future where they could build a life together, free from the constraints of tradition. Elena discovered her passion for writing, crafting stories that explored love, sacrifice, and the resilience of the human spirit. Marco continued to paint, using his art to express the depth of his emotions and the beauty of their love. Together, they created a world where their dreams intertwined, where love triumphed over adversity. Yet, as the days turned into months, the reality of their choices weighed heavily on them. Marco faced ostracization from his family. The once warm and loving relationship now strained and fraught with tension. Each time he returned to Milan, he felt the chilling silence in his home, the disapproval of his parents palpable. Elena, too, felt the sting of judgment from her own family and friends, who struggled to understand her choice to be with someone whose life was so different from hers. The whispers of doubt echoed around her, but she stood firm in her love for Marco, determined to fight for what they had built together. One chilly evening, as they sat on the beach watching the waves crash against the shore, Marco turned to Elena, concern etched across his face. "I can't keep dragging you into this. Your life is so different from mine. I don't want you to suffer because of my choices." "Don't you dare say that," Elena replied fiercely, taking his hands in hers. "I've chosen this path with my whole heart. I won't let you push me away." "But the sacrifices are broken bar, they're piling up. I'm not sure how much more we can endure," he admitted, frustration lacing his words. Elena felt a pang of uncertainty in her chest. "We'll figure it out, Marco. We have each other, that's what matters." As they kissed under the moonlight, she felt the weight of the world pressing down on them, but they held on to the hope that their love would carry them through. Months passed, and as autumn gave way to winter, the challenges they faced began to take their toll. Marco found himself caught in a whirlwind of family expectations, pressure to conform, and the haunting memories of the love he had once cherished. Each time he returned home, the coldness from his family intensified, a constant reminder of the choices he had made. Yet, even as the world seemed to conspire against them, their love burned brightly. They created a small sanctuary of happiness, spending long evenings wrapped in each other's arms, dreaming of a future that seemed both impossible and within reach. But as winter approached, the weight of their struggles began to threaten the fragile balance they had fought so hard to achieve. The whispers of doubt grew louder, and Marco felt the pressure of the world closing in around him. One stormy night, as the wind howled outside, Marco sat alone in his studio, Surrounded by unfinished canvases, the storm mirrored the turmoil in his heart as he struggled to find inspiration. His thoughts consumed by the uncertainty of their future, he picked up a brush and began to paint, pouring his emotions onto the canvas. But as he worked, the memories of his family's disapproval flooded his mind, the weight of his decisions began to suffocate him, and the fear of losing everything crept in. He felt torn between the love that fueled his soul and the family that had defined him for so long. Elena arrived later that evening, her heart racing as she sensed the tension in the air. "Marco!" she called softly, stepping into the dimly lit room. When she saw him, she rushed to his side, concern etched on her face. "What's wrong?" "I'm just a broken bar lost," he admitted, the pain in his voice palpable. "I don't know how to keep doing this." Elena felt her heart break at his words. "You don't have to do it alone. We're in this together. Remember?" "I know. But I feel like I'm fighting against the tide. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to escape the expectations," he said, frustration boiling over. "Then let's change the narrative. We can write our own story," she suggested, desperation creeping into her voice. "We can be the architects of our lives." But deep down, Marco felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He loved Elena fiercely, but the fear of losing everything he had ever known loomed large. "What if they cut me off completely?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What if I lose my family forever?" Elena stepped closer, determination shining in her eyes. "Then we'll build our own family. We'll create our own future, one that's built on love and mutual respect." "It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is." Marco gazed into her eyes, searching for the reassurance he so desperately needed. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," she replied, her voice steady. "But you have to believe it too. You have to choose us, Marco. You can't keep living for others at the cost of your happiness." The silence stretched between them as the weight of her words hung in the air. Finally, Marco nodded slowly, a flicker of determination igniting within him. "You're right, I can't keep doing this." "I won't." With renewed resolve, they embraced, their hearts beating in sync. In that moment, they made a silent promise to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As winter deepened and the first snow began to fall, Marco found the courage to confront his family once more. He returned to Milan, his heart pounding as he stood before them, determined to make his stance clear. "Enough is enough," he declared, his voice unwavering. "I love Elena, and I will not let anyone dictate my life or my happiness. If that means I have to walk away from this family, then so be it." His father's face turned crimson with rage, while his mother's eyes filled with tears. "You're throwing your life away," his father shouted, the disappointment echoing in the room. "I'm choosing to live for myself," Marco replied, his voice steady. "If you can't accept that, then I guess I have to make my choice." As the confrontation unfolded, Marco felt a strange sense of liberation wash over him. The chains of expectation began to loosen, and for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. He realized that love was worth fighting for, and he refused to back down. Meanwhile, back in San Remo, Elena continued to pour her heart into her writing, using her words to craft stories that resonated with the struggles of love and choice. She missed Marco every day, but the strength of their connection fueled her creativity. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons changed. Spring blossomed around them, bringing with it a renewed sense of hope and possibility. Marco and Elena leaned on each other for support, and despite the obstacles they faced, their love continued to grow. As summer approached, they made plans to take a trip together and escape from the pressures of reality, a chance to reconnect and rediscover the magic that had brought them together. On a warm evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they found themselves standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The golden rays bathed them in warmth, and for a moment, the weight of the world faded away. "Promise me something," Marco said, his voice low. "Anything," Elena replied, her heart racing. "Promise me we'll never let anyone come between us again. No matter what happens, we'll face it together," he said, his eyes searching hers. "I promise," she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'll always choose you." As they sealed their promise with a kiss, the world around them felt alive with possibility. The waves crashed against the rocks below, echoing their commitment to one another. But as they stood there, hand in hand, the reality of their choices loomed in the distance, a reminder that their love story was just beginning, and the journey ahead would be filled with challenges and triumphs, heartache and joy. As summer faded into fall, Marco and Elena continued to navigate the complexities of their relationship. They faced opposition from Marco's family, who refused to accept his choice to be with Elena. Each visit to Milan felt like a battle, with his family constantly reminding him of the sacrifices they had made for him. One afternoon, after a particularly heated confrontation, Marco returned to San Remo, his heart heavy with uncertainty. As he walked along the beach, the salty breeze whipped through his hair, but all he could feel was the weight of his family's expectations pulling him down. Elena met him at their favorite spot, her expression softening as she noticed the turmoil in his eyes. "Hey, what happened?" she asked gently, wrapping her arms around him. "I just feel so lost," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time I go back home, it's like I'm drowning in their expectations. I love you, but I don't know how to balance it all." Elena took a step back, searching his face. "You don't have to choose between us. You deserve to be happy, Marco. But you have to stand up for that happiness." "I want to," he replied, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "But it's not that simple. They're my family." "Family doesn't always mean sacrificing your happiness," she said, her voice unwavering. "You deserve a love that uplifts you, not one that drags you down. If they truly loved you, they would want what's best for you." Her words resonated within him, and he felt a flicker of hope ignite. "You're right," he said, determination creeping into his voice. "I can't keep letting them dictate my life. I need to find a way to make them understand." Over the next few weeks, they worked together to strategize how to approach the situation. Marco sought advice from friends and allies who had experienced similar struggles, learning how to communicate his feelings without alienating his family completely. Then, one chilly evening, he mustered the courage to confront his parents once more. He arrived at their home, heart racing. As he stepped inside, the air was thick with tension, and he could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. "Marco, we need to talk about your future," his father began, his tone stern. "This isn't just about you anymore." "I know," Marco replied, standing his ground, "but it's also about my happiness. I'm not going to marry someone I don't love. I can't live my life for you anymore." His mother's eyes widened in shock. "What are you saying? You'll regret this decision." "No, I won't," Marco insisted, his voice steady. "I love Elena, and I won't let anyone dictate who I should be with. I'm asking you to understand that." The room fell silent, and Marco could feel the weight of their disappointment crashing over him. But he stood firm, refusing to back down. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, his father spoke. "You'll be making a grave mistake, Marco. We've always done what's best for our family, and I'm telling you that what's best for me is to be with Elena," he said, his heart racing. "If that means losing your approval, then so be it." As the confrontation escalated, Marco felt the chains of expectation begin to shatter. He realized that he was finally taking control of his life and making choices that reflected his true desires. Meanwhile, Elena waited anxiously at home, her heart pounding as she paced the floor. She sent silent prayers into the universe, hoping for the best outcome for Marco. Finally, after what felt like hours, Marco returned to San Remo, his face a mix of relief and exhaustion. When he saw Elena waiting for him, he rushed into her arms, feeling the weight of the world lift off his shoulders. "Did they understand?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "They didn't agree, but they know I won't back down," he replied, a sense of triumph in his voice. "I'm finally living for myself." Tears of joy filled Elena's eyes as they embraced. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered, her heart swelling with love. From that day forward, Marco and Elena faced the world as partners, Ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead, they navigated the complexities of their love with courage and determination, forging a path that was uniquely theirs. As autumn faded into winter, they grew even closer, sharing their dreams, fears, and aspirations. They explored new places together, creating memories that would last a lifetime. The more they experienced together, the stronger their bond became. But as the holidays approached, the tension between Marco and his family intensified. They refused to accept his decision to be with Elena, continuing to pressure him to conform to their expectations. Each encounter felt like a battlefield, and the weight of his family's disapproval loomed heavy. One cold evening, as snow began to fall, Marco found himself sitting in the living room of Elena's apartment, the warmth of the fire contrasting sharply with the turmoil in his heart. He took her hand, his gaze filled with uncertainty. "Do you think they'll ever accept us?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Elena looked into his eyes, determination shining through. "I hope they will, but even if they don't, we'll be okay. Our love is strong enough to weather this storm." "But it's hard," Marco admitted, frustration lacing his words. "I feel like I'm constantly fighting against my own family, and it's taking a toll on me." Elena squeezed his hand, her heart aching for him. "You don't have to fight alone. I'm here for you, and we can face this together." Love isn't easy, but it's worth it. As the snow continued to fall outside, Marco felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. He knew that no matter what happened, he had Elena by his side, and that made all the difference. Weeks turned into months, and as winter gave way to spring, Marco and Elena continued to navigate the challenges of their love. They faced harsh criticism from both their families and friends, but they remained steadfast in their commitment to one another. During a particularly tense dinner with his family, Marco finally broke down, voicing the frustrations that had been building inside him. "I can't keep living this way. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not just to make you happy." His parents looked taken aback, but Marco pressed on. "I love Elena, and I refuse to sacrifice my happiness for your expectations. I'm choosing to live my life authentically, even if it means losing your approval." The confrontation was raw and emotional, and for the first time, Marco felt a sense of liberation. He had made his choice, and he was willing to stand by it, no matter the consequences. Meanwhile, Elena channeled her emotions into her writing, crafting stories that explore the complexities of love and sacrifice. She found solace in her creativity, pouring her heart into characters that mirrored her own struggles. As they continued to grow, both individually and as a couple, Marco and Elena found themselves in a beautiful rhythm. They supported one another through their respective challenges, their love growing deeper with each passing day. But just as it seemed they were finding their footing, a new challenge emerged. Marco's family announced that they were organizing a lavish engagement party for him and the woman his parents had chosen. The news hit Marco like a ton of bricks. "Can I do that?" Elena asked, disbelief etched across her face. Marco shook his head, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "They think they can force me into it, but I won't let them. I'm not going to marry someone I don't love." Elena felt her heart race as she watched the pain in his eyes. "We need to confront them again. You can't let them take away your choices." As the day of the engagement party approached, Marco felt the pressure mounting. His family's expectations were suffocating, but he knew he had to stand his ground. When the day finally arrived, he arrived at the venue with a mix of determination and anxiety. The grand ballroom was adorned with flowers and decorations, the air thick with anticipation, but Marco's heart was heavy with the knowledge of the battle that lay ahead. As guests mingled and laughter filled the air, Marco stood at the edge of the room, searching for the strength to confront his family once more. When his parents finally found him, he took a deep breath, ready to make his stand. "Marco, we're so proud of you," his mother said, her voice filled with warmth. He forced a smile, but inside, he felt the tension coiling tighter. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk," he said, his voice steady. The room quieted as they turned their attention to him. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't marry someone I don't love. I'm in love with Elena, and I won't let you dictate my future anymore." The shock in their faces was palpable. And for a moment, time stood still. The room buzzed with whispers as guests exchanged glances, unsure of what to say or do. "Are you really willing to throw everything away?" his father asked, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "I'd rather have nothing than live a lie," Marco replied, his heart racing. "I'm choosing to live for myself. And I hope you can understand that." The silence that followed was deafening. And Marco felt the weight of the moment hanging in the air. He had taken the leap. And now it was up to his family to accept the truth. As the tension in the room escalated, Marco felt a sense of liberation wash over him. No matter what happened next, he had chosen love over fear. And that was a victory in itself. Elena, who had been watching from a distance, felt a mix of pride and fear for Marco. She knew this was a pivotal moment in their journey, one that could change everything. The party eventually resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Marco's parents were visibly upset, and the guests were unsure of how to respond. But Marco felt lighter, the burden of expectation lifting as he stood firm in his decision. As the evening wore on, Marco found Elena, their eyes meeting across the crowded room. She rushed to him, her heart full of admiration. "You were incredible," she said, tears of pride glistening in her eyes. "I had to do it. I couldn't keep pretending," he replied, pulling her into an embrace. "No matter what happens, I know I'll always choose you." In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of the party, Marco felt a sense of hope for their future. He had faced the storm, and together they would continue to navigate the turbulent waters of love. But as the days turned into weeks, the consequences of his choice began to unfold. Marco's family cut ties with him, their disapproval echoing in the silence that followed. He faced challenges from all sides, with whispers of doubt and fear creeping in. Yet through it all, Marco and Elena held on to one another, their love unwavering. They spent long nights dreaming of the future they would build together, finding solace in their shared passion and creativity. As summer approached, they took a trip to the countryside, escaping the pressures of city life and immersing themselves in the beauty of nature. It was during this retreat that they discovered a renewed sense of hope and possibility. One evening, while watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Marco took Elena's hand, his heart pounding. "What if we took the leap?" he asked, his voice filled with excitement. "What do you mean?" she replied, her curiosity piqued. "What if we moved away, somewhere we can start fresh? Just the two of us. We can create the life we've always dreamed of," he suggested, his eyes shining with possibility. Elena felt her heart race at the thought. "You really think we could do that?" "Absolutely," he replied, determination shining through. "We can build a life together, free from the pressures of our families, a life filled with love and creativity." As they discussed their dreams, Elena felt a sense of excitement wash over her. The idea of starting anew filled her with hope, and together they began to make plans for their future. In the months that followed, they worked tirelessly to prepare for their new life. Marco poured his heart into his art, finding inspiration in the beauty of their surroundings, while Elena continued to hone her writing, weaving their story into her work. As they packed their belongings and prepared for the journey ahead, they felt a sense of freedom wash over them. They were leaving behind the expectations of their families and stepping into a future filled with possibility. On the day of their departure, they stood hand in hand, gazing out at the horizon. With a deep breath, they took their first steps into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever came next. Their journey was not without its challenges, but they faced each obstacle together, their love growing stronger with every passing day. They learned to lean on one another, finding comfort in the knowledge that they were building a life that was truly theirs. As the seasons changed, Marco and Elena found themselves thriving in their new home. They created a community of friends who embraced their love and supported their dreams. The weight of their past began to lift, and they felt a sense of belonging that had eluded them for so long. But even as they flourished, the echoes of their family's disapproval lingered. They received occasional messages filled with disappointment and judgment, but they learned to block out the noise, focusing on the love they had cultivated together. One afternoon, As they sat on the porch of their new home, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Marco turned to Elena, his expression filled with love. "I can't believe we did this," he said, awe evident in his voice. "We built our dream together." Elena smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "We fought for it, Marco. Our love is stronger than any obstacle." As they embraced, they knew that their journey was far from over. They had chosen a path filled with uncertainty, but it was a path paved with love, resilience, and the promise of a future together. As time went on, Marco and Elena continued to grow both individually and as a couple. They explored new passions, challenged each other creatively, and discovered a newfound strength within themselves. But as their lives began to flourish, the ghosts of their past still haunted them. The absence of Marco's family weighed heavily on his heart, especially during significant moments like birthdays and holidays. One chilly autumn evening, as they prepared to celebrate Thanksgiving, Marco found himself lost in thought. He felt a pang of nostalgia for the family gatherings he used to attend, the warmth of togetherness that felt like a distant memory. "Are you okay?" Elena asked, noticing the distant look in his eyes. "I'm just thinking about my family," he admitted, his voice laced with sadness. "It's hard not to miss them during the holidays." Elena moved closer, wrapping her arms around him. "I know it's tough, but remember that we've created our own family. We have each other, and that's what matters." "I know, but it doesn't make the pain any less real," Marco replied, frustration lacing his words. "I just wish they could understand my choices." "Maybe one day they will," Elena offered gently. "But right now, let's focus on what we have. Let's create our own traditions and memories." With her encouragement, Marco began to shift his perspective. They spent the evening cooking together, filling their home with the aroma of comfort food and laughter. As they sat down to enjoy their meal, they shared stories of what they were grateful for, creating their own sense of belonging. As the years passed, Marco and Elena forged a beautiful life together. They established roots in their community, made lasting friendships, and supported one another through the challenges life threw their way. They filled their home with love, laughter, and the shared dreams they had nurtured. But even as they thrived, the reality of their choices remained a bittersweet reminder. Marco still grappled with his family's rejection, and the longing for acceptance lingered like a shadow. One summer evening, as they watched the sunset over the horizon, Marco turned to Elena, his voice filled with vulnerability. "Do you think I'll ever be able to reconcile with my family?" Elena took a moment to consider his question. "I think it's possible, but it will take time. You've made your choices, and they may need time to process that. But your happiness matters, Marco, and I'm here for you, no matter what." Her words offered him comfort, but the uncertainty remained. He knew that while their love had conquered many challenges, the journey of healing with his family would require patience and understanding. As the years continued to unfold, Marco and Elena remained committed to each other, their love flourishing amid life's complexities. They navigated the joys and struggles of everyday life, finding strength in their partnership. But as Marco pursued his artistic career and Elena continued to write, they both felt a pull to return to Milan for a gallery exhibition showcasing Marco's work. It was an opportunity for him to share his journey through art, but it also meant facing the ghosts of his past. On the night of the exhibition, the gallery was filled with the vibrant energy of artists and enthusiasts alike. As Marco stood beside his pieces, he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was his moment, but the weight of his family's absence loomed heavily on his heart. When he spotted his parents entering the gallery, a wave of anxiety washed over him. They hadn't spoken in years, and the air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Elena sensed his tension and stepped closer, taking his hand. "You've got this, Marco. Just be yourself." As his parents approached, Marco felt his heart race. "Hi," he said, his voice steady but soft. "Marco," his mother replied, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Your work eyes are broken bar beautiful." "Thank you," he said, his heart aching. "I'm glad you came." His father looked at him, the tension palpable. "We've been following your career. We're proud of you." The conversation felt stilted, but Marco could sense a flicker of hope in the air. "I've missed you," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "I never wanted to lose you." His mother reached for his hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "We didn't understand your choices, but we've had time to reflect. We're sorry for how we reacted." As they stood there, the weight of years of hurt began to lift. Marco felt a sense of healing washing over him, the barrier slowly breaking down. "I love Elena," he said, his voice steady, "and I'm happy. I want you to be a part of my life again." In that moment, they embraced, the warmth of their connection rekindling the bond that had been strained for so long. As they stood together, surrounded by the beauty of Marco's art, he felt a sense of closure washing over him. From that day forward, Marco and his family began to rebuild their relationship, one conversation at a time. It was a long journey, filled with ups and downs, but the foundation of love and understanding had been restored. As they embraced their new beginnings, Marco and Elena found solace in the strength of their bond. Together, they forged a beautiful life, one where love triumphed over fear, and where the future held endless possibilities. Their story became a testament to the power of love, sacrifice, and the courage to choose one's own path. Marco and Elena had faced the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. And in the quiet moments of their lives, as they watched the sun set over the horizon, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand, forever intertwined in the beautiful journey of life. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video.